Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday Zen and Zazen class. Today is one of those days where I talk about Sawaki Roshi's sayings, but before that, let's sit for half an hour together.
前面还是先坐禅30分钟啊。
I try to keep it.
Thank you for joining. It's quite cold here in my room, but for some reason the fan is running quite high, so I'll try to connect my microphone. During Zazen, maybe it's the best idea if you turn your microphone off. Sometimes there's some kind of noise, or maybe sometimes someone is walking into your room. Just in case. Of course, later during the discussion you can always unmute yourself if you want to speak. Maybe now the audio quality has changed. Now I should be connected to the microphone. Okay, so this month, this week again, I want to talk about Sawaki Roshi. And where did we get? I was talking about blindness. I think the next quote begins with, "Life is one big contradiction. You say, 'Did you see what he's done?' when all the while you would have loved to have done it yourself." I think that's an observation that we can make a lot of times, that people criticize others for doing things that actually they would have loved to do themselves. Often those are the things that are most difficult for us to accept in others. Mistakes that are actually also our mistakes. Or I don't know, for example, if you love to eat meat, but you decided to become a vegetarian, then probably you cannot tolerate other people who eat meat. While if, on the other hand, you're a vegetarian by nature, you never love to eat meat, you're not so bothered by others eating meat. So in most cases, it's something that we have a problem with ourselves, that we get annoyed by the most in others. So before we criticize others, we might have a good look at ourselves and ask ourselves, well, maybe it's my problem more than the other person's problem.
我先简单翻译一下老师刚才今天读的那个内容啊。我们今天还是读泽木老师那本书，然后书里写的是，其实我们的人生或者说我们的生活是一个特别大的矛盾。你总是在说，你看到他做什么了吗？你看到他做什么了吗？或者是你看到别人做什么了吗？其实当你这样说的时候，就是你总是喜欢这样说，其实是你自己怎么是不好翻译。其实当你这么说的时候呢，其实你总是喜欢这样子说，然后就是这个本身是你自己喜欢这样说，而不是就是当你这样说的时候，是你自己喜欢这样说啊。然后老师说，其实我们总是花时间批判一些事情，或者说是你批判一些你自己喜欢做的一些喜欢的事情，就是你总是喜欢这样做这件事情。我们总是其实很多时候呢，错误都是自己犯的，但是呢，你只是习惯于评判别人，没有看到自己。比如好像比如老师举了一个例子，比如说你喜欢吃肉，然后但是呢，你决定要做一个素食主义者，或者是你自然而然就是一个素食主义者。其实你看，当你有这个矛盾之后呢，其实是你自己的问题。你本身是喜欢吃肉，但是你决定了做了一个素食的主义者。然后就好像我们在评判别人之前，先看一看问题其实出在哪儿，是出在你身上呢，还是出在别人身上？ 在你评判别人之前，看一看是不是自己喜欢的这些事情有错误，或者是不是问题在自己身上，有点绕哈，说完了。
Next quote, life isn't so easy. Sometimes there's war and the sky is on fire. Sometimes you take an afternoon nap by the stove. Sometimes you work the whole night through. Sometimes you get drunk with friends. In the buddha-dharma, it is a question of how you can give direction to this life according to the Buddha's teaching. Maybe the last sentence seems to be disconnected from the first two. But here I think Sawaki Roshi is also talking about, well, the fact that life is also often contradictory. Every day is different. Sometimes we feel that everything is going good, and sometimes it feels like life is hell. And Buddhism is not about making every day a good day in the sense that every day is peaceful, I feel fine every day. But sometimes I feel lost, and sometimes I feel good about being alive in this world. And Buddhism is about dealing with both situations. Sometimes, well, the ocean is very peaceful, there's no wave, and sometimes there's a big storm on the ocean. And you have, in both cases, on both days, you have to navigate the ocean. So Buddhism is not about having a peaceful ocean every day, but it's about aiming your life in good times and in bad times at the Buddha's teaching. Buddha's teaching means, in my words, just facing reality as it is, even if reality is not the way you would like it to be. And most of the time, it's not the way you would like it to be. But even on such days, you have to face reality and deal with reality as it is, and not with reality as you would like it to be.
然后下面这一段呢，那个子木老师说，生活或者是生命不是很容易的，有些时候呢会有战争，有些时候天空也会着火，有的时候你会在下午的时候，睡个懒觉，有的在那个火炉旁边睡觉，睡个懒觉，有的时候你可能通宵工作。有的时候呢，你可能跟朋友一块儿喝醉，在就是佛的，我们叫业哈，中文翻译成佛的业里面说，我们总是怀疑你怎么给生活一个方向，也根据这个佛的教导，怎么来给我们总是怀疑，或者是总是有这个疑问，怎样给自己生活一个方向？然后老师说最后这一句可能跟前面好像觉得有点不搭杠哈，好像觉得好像是没有什么联系。其实老师说，泽木老师可能在这儿是想跟大家说，因为每一天都是不一样的，有的时候呢，有的时候这一天过得很好，有的时候是不好的。而佛的教导呢，它是，呃，它虽然它告诉我们每一天，我们之前说过那个日是好日啊，我们每天都是好的，每一天都应该是好的。但是其实有些时候呢，你也是在每一天的日子当中迷失。佛的教导呢是两方面的，是这个好的和不好的两方面的，也就是你两方面都要处理，在生活很美好的时候，或者是不顺利的时候，都要面对，就好像海面一样，有的时候是平静的，有的时候它也有大石头，也会有波澜，嗯，所以佛的教导并不是说让你一直保持平静，让你一直在一个平静的海面当中。它其实是不管是一个好的时候，还是一个不是很顺利的时候，你都要面对它。然后孟浩老师说，在他看来，其实我的教导呢，就是让你看到现实，不管这个现实是不是你喜欢的，或者是这个现实呢，是不是你喜欢处理的一个方法， 其实很多时候，或者是大部分时候，其实都不是和你的心意是一样的。但是佛的教也是让你怎么面对和处理这些问题。
Okay, let's read one more quote. You're in love with each other, but not for your whole life. Sometimes when we're still young, when we fall in love, we feel we must be in love for the rest of our life. But Sawaki Roshi says, probably not. There was a couple who loved each other so much that they attempted suicide together in order to be united in death. Actually, there's a Japanese word for that. It's called a shinju. You write it with the character for kokoro, heart, and shu, which means in the middle. And I don't know about recent times, but there was a time about 100 years ago where that was pretty popular. Also because Japanese at that time were not allowed to marry the person they loved, but usually it was the parents that decided whom they were supposed to marry. And when two young people fell in love with each other, but their parents wouldn't allow them to marry, they would sometimes choose to attempt suicide and die together. They call that shinju in Japanese. And Sawaki Roshi continues. Sometimes they attempt suicide together in order to be united in death. One of the two survived and shortly afterwards fell in love all over again. Humans are truly pitiful. Maybe he's referring here to a quite famous writer in Japan who lived in the time when Sawaki Roshi was active. His name is Dazai Osamu, you pronounce the name in Japanese. And I think he finally died by suicide with another woman. But I think he attempted several times. He was a kind of quite depressed person. His most famous work is No Longer Human, or a kind of human failure, you could say. He was a kind of depressed person, but also he fell in love with a couple of women, and I think he at least once or twice unsuccessfully tried to kill himself with, for example, a waitress that he fell in love with at a bar. And at least in one or two of these cases, the other person, the woman, died, but he survived. Can you hear me now? Okay. Strange. Until when didn't you understand? When did it break off, the sound? I was talking about this Japanese writer. You can hear me now, yes? Yeah.
When
His name
you
is Dazai
began laughing.
Like he is the one who he finally died by suicide, and I think at least once, maybe even twice, he attempted to die before together with some woman that he fell in love with, and they decided, let's die together. Let's die together. But then, unfortunately, the woman only died and he survived, only to fall in love with another woman and try suicide again. So yeah, life is one big contradiction, I think, what Sawaki Roshi wants to say this time, and that you cannot really trust your feelings, even if at that moment you think I'm in love for the rest of my life, or that's what I want to do. Things change. Things change a lot. So don't trust your feelings, even your gut feelings. Sometimes people think that Zen means to let go of your intellectual ideas and just trust your gut feeling, but even your gut feelings change a lot.
老师又读了一段，我翻译一下。就是那个书上写的是，你觉得你们两个人很相爱吗？你觉得，但是不是一生的，不是你整个人生，你们两个都会这样相爱的。有一对儿情侣，他们特别爱对方，然后两个人决定一起自杀，就是殉情哈。然后，但是其中一个人没有死成，就其中一个人被救过来了。没有过多久，另外那个活下来的人呢，他又和别人陷入了爱情。然后你看我们人类是多么的可怜，就是书上这样写的。然后老师说，其实日本大概100年以前吧，其实中国也是这样哈，都是指腹为婚，就是没有自由恋爱。然后有自由恋爱的人，好像两个人就一起自杀，是一件特别浪漫的事儿。老师刚才举一个例子，在日本特别有名的一个作者，大家都知道他，知道太宰治哈。就是太宰治，他是特别有名的一个作者，他就可能也是精神不正常吧。他是结婚了的，然后但是他其实中间嗯，他就是可能和别人也和别的女的相爱，然后两个他就是怎么说呢？就是我们就说教唆是吧？就是他和那个人就劝他咱们两个这么相爱，然后不能在一起，我们一起自杀吧。然后他可能结果两个人一起自杀，然后跟他一起的那个女的就死了，然后他没死成。后来没过多久，他又和别人相爱了，然后他又劝那人跟他一起自杀，然后这回两个人一块死了，最后他是自杀那个过世的。所以你看，就是老师说，其实他就是这个就是特别典型的一个例子，就是不要相信感觉，因为感觉是会变的。不要觉得好像你现在多么有感觉哈，事情是会改变的，不要相信感觉。
Okay, we still have some time. So if you have anything to share, if there's anything that you would like to ask, you're welcome to do so. Either raise your hand or unmute yourself. You can also use the chat function if you prefer to do that. Ginjo-san, please.
Thank you. The teaching of Buddhism now and here.
Yes.
And some of the people just take the teaching just for their own profit. And then it's important to know and hear. That's everything. And you talked about the feeling of the gut. And yes. That's what I feel. This moment, I feel so. That's the important thing. That is a Buddha teaching. But I read a book about somebody that's not based on a real story, but somebody was learning Buddhist teaching and here and now, and he was living completely hedonistic. Can I? It's a danger, and then hedonistic and nihilistic. He didn't care about anybody. It's like Dazai Osamu. I don't know how he cared about the ladies who died. And I think it's a danger in Buddhist teaching. Could you please say something antidote against that? People just want to take the things just for their own profit. Thank you.
An antidote to that. Probably the antidote to that would be the realization that you actually suffer more. I mean, hedonism is about having the maximum of fun, enjoying life to the maximum, but only yourself, not caring about others. But actually, not only do other people suffer, but you suffer. So to me, hedonism is kind of a contradiction in itself. You try to have the biggest amount of joy, but actually as a result of that, you end up suffering. As a true hedonist, I mean, the most amount of joy you have when you realize you're actually, how do you say, in control of your life. And that's what some hedonists lose, kind of. They become slaves of their desire, but what enjoyment is there in being a slave? You don't want to live as a slave. So if we try to get out of hedonism, we first need to have this realization. Actually, I'm allowing myself to be a slave, but I don't want to be a slave.
If the hedonist has got a guts to confront themselves,
yes,
hedonists stay in hedonism because of they don't actually want to confrontation of the reality.
Yes.
So
yeah, it's probably they try to escape, but you cannot escape reality. You cannot.
No. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else you would like to share?
But once you've got free of that mindset of being a slave,
yes,
and you have that freedom, then what do you do with that freedom? It's a big question, I know, for the end of the session, but
what do you do with that freedom? I mean, that's you are free. So I mean, that's your freedom. That's your freedom. I mean, it's all up to you. You can do anything you like with that freedom. So, I mean, if you decide to be a hedonist or a slave anyway, nobody can hinder you. That's also part of the freedom. It's completely up to you. It's completely up to you. There's no manual. Of course, in Buddhism, traditionally, there would be kind of some kind of rules, things that you're supposed to not do. But at the end of the day, it's even up to you. It's your freedom to keep to such rules if you decide to, or to not keep to these rules. In Buddhism, it's usually, how do you say, encouraged to keep to these rules in order to help yourself and others to reduce their suffering. But if you still decide, but I don't want to reduce my suffering and I don't want to reduce other people's suffering, that's also part of the freedom. So I think there's really no answer to that question. What do I do with that freedom? That's exactly what freedom is all about, that you find your own answer to that question. That's why, I mean, freedom can be also, how do you say, frightening. Freedom sounds nice. We all think we want to be free, but the moment you realize I am free, it can be frightening. And maybe that's why people try to escape into hedonism or whatever, because freedom is too much for them. And if you are in a time in your life where you're actually not ready for that complete freedom, you can choose to, for example, commit to a certain set of rules. As you have in Buddhism, you have in Christianity, that will give you a certain guidance. Or when you enter a monastery, of course, it's about experiencing complete freedom also in the monastery. But when you go to a monastery, you don't really have to worry so much, what do I do with the freedom? Because from 4 a.m. in the morning until 9 p.m., you have a schedule to follow. And for some people, that sounds frightening. What? The whole day is regulated? But that can be also liberation, because you don't have to worry, well, what do I do with all that time that I have? So if you decide, I don't want that freedom, it's too much for me, then, well, to commit to some environment or commit to some rules that take away a certain amount of that freedom, but that can sometimes help you to actually feel liberated from this too much freedom. But even that, it's your decision. So that's a freedom, a commitment that you make deliberately. I think there's nothing that we have to do from birth. It's not that we have to use this freedom in a certain way. Are there any other questions? Anything else you would like to share? Xuan-san, please.
Yes, about the feeling, you said don't trust the feeling. I think it is because our mind change very fast. Things also change, but sometimes we learn from feelings.
Yes.
Like enlightenment. You practice as enlightenment. Also, like in yoga we say samadhi. Samadhi is a feeling. You feel you're in the flow. And like you learn balance, how to control your body, balance, control your mind. It's a feeling. So we can't trust the feeling, but we learn from feeling.
Yes. Yes. But probably we learn from experience as well that, well, feelings can change. And we cannot always trust them 100%. But of course, we also have to take them as some kind of guidance, some input. So feelings or emotions are not something that's bad also. But yeah, we have to accept the fact that they are changing. Anything else that you would like to ask or share? If not, well, thank you for this week. Thank you for February. Next week's going to be March. Same time, Monday, same space, Xuan-san's Zoom room. And if you like, I would be happy to see you again. So have a nice week. Thank you for coming.
You too. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.